What is up, fellas? We are back with another Dynasty startup mock draft. Going to be ripping a Superflex draft here. We'll drop the link in the chat, Danny, if you want to take care of that, and we will get this thing going. So, I'm still in Mexico, so we're kind of keeping it easy in terms of, preparation type vids. And obviously, we're actually in the middle of a startup right now in around about round 5 or so of our most recent listener league startup. So also a good indicator of, where we expect the value pockets to be, especially for me. I'm actually building out kind of like a competitive shell. You're a little bit more flexible. You can kind of go either way, but I've kind of, with my AJ Brown, my Devon Achane picks, I'm like, you know what? I'm probably leaning towards DJ Moore as well, more of a competitive shell there. So I'm curious to see how these rooms end up filling out here.
Yeah, for those of you that are curious, we're right about the end of the 5th round at this point. Obviously, we're going to keep updating you guys what's happening. So far, I mean, since you added Devon Achane, you didn't have another draft pick, right?
No, because I had to trade up from my 504 to get Achane. I think we're at the 509 or 510 right now. So I don't pick again until 604, I think. So got a long list of queued guys there. It's a pretty flat board right now. I've noticed. I'm a little shocked, actually. I thought the wide receiver run would have happened a little heavier than it has so far. Same with the rookie picks, too. I mean, we still have, what 109?
109 available.
Right, like 111 to 17 went off the board really high, I think.
108 too.
Yeah, 108 as well. Like, I'm surprised that people weren't chasing the next group of picks a little quicker than they were before. But
I will say, because I do feel like obviously there's a tier break from the 109 to the 110, or sorry, to 108 to the 109 on. But at the same time, it's like I took the 108 at the 407. I'm like, okay, you know what? The quarterback liquidity is going to start coming. Like we saw Goff go since then. I believe like the next couple with like Watson, Young, Levis, etc. should be off the board soon. So I thought that once that pick would go, like we would see the 109, the 110 go off the board. But like even me, I'm looking at it. I have the 512 and seeing that the 109 is 1.5 rounds after the 108. I'm like, okay, I understand there's a tier break, but that's a good value.
Yeah, for sure. A couple more spots in the draft if anybody else wants to join in. We got some people in the chat here. Ryan says, thoughts on sending a likely late 2026 first? Be careful. That's 2 years from now. Might not be late. For Travis Kelce, win now roster. Yeah, dude, you have Kittle? What the hell is the point of doing
What are we doing here? Like that trade is brutal. I wouldn't give up a first for Kelce if my tight end room was Cade Otton and fucking, I don't know,
Cole Kmet.
Like there's no point.
Yeah, like
would not do it.
Kelce's not even remotely enough of a big enough upgrade over Kittle. Like I wouldn't be shocked if Kittle outscored Kelce next year, to be honest.
For sure. How we feel about Barkley in the 205 for the 102 seems like a no-brainer, but just checking out, it's the 102, not very close, I would say, Cameron.
Yeah, I mean, even if that's a one quarterback 102, that's still an easy smash.
Yeah. No, I agree. Everybody in chat agrees. That was my thought. Just getting some input, of course. Just sold 104 in Fields for Herbert. The thoughts are that guy got bent over backwards, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a Fields. There's a Fields truther in every single league that you guys are going to see. Like there's still people out there selling Justin Fields for mid ones and late ones right now, which is pretty insane considering the entire NFL is in agreement that he's not a starting caliber quarterback.
I mean, like you basically bent that guy over the table and gave him the wooden paddle on that one. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I wish my league traded. Only trades that get done are more experienced people fleecing new dynasty players. Won't agree to any trades that are objectively fair. Yeah, that's the worst type of league to be in, to be honest.
Yeah, still need one more in this draft, by the way. If anybody wants to hop in here, we will not be getting it going until we are full. So team 8 still needs to be claimed here if anybody wants to hop in for a super flex half tight end premium 6 point per passing touchdown. Are we doing it? We're doing a 3 RR as well?
Yeah, fuck it. We'll mix it up. We don't do that a lot.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, Ryan, I understand like the production that Kelce would give you, but there's just absolutely no reason to do this. A, I don't think he's worth it first. B, you already have a set tight end position. And C, like the mindset of, I'll take the L later on to get this guy on my team is how you end up orphaning your dynasty teams.
It's also, you're absolutely positive 2 years from now, you're still going to have a 112 in 2026. Like Kelce will be retired by then, dude. Like like that pick that you might be selling, like if your team is an aging team with McCaffrey types and Devontae Adams types and Kelce types, like you could be talking about a mid one that you gave up, to be honest. Maybe it does that bullshit sometimes. So hit the reverse order or whatever the hell it's called.
Randomize. Bang.
Oh my God, I got a high pick, but of course we're doing 3RR, so that's classic.
I mean, I got by far the objective worst pick in a 3RR.
Which is, yeah,
the 107.
This might be a hot take. I'm not 100% convinced that that's the worst pick to have.
I mean, the reason why I say that is because my personal top quarterbacks are going to be off, and then I would take a wide receiver at 107. So at that point, it's like I either want a high pick or I want to just get an earlier third. Where do we leave off in terms of comments? I'm lower than most on Herbert. I don't think he'll be throwing the ball nearly as frequent, but he's still better value than Fields on the bench in Pitt and Jaden Daniels or May, in my opinion. Yeah, look, I would easily prefer that side there, Matt. I don't know why you'd ruin your future dynasty. If you're going for Kelsey, use a 2024 or 2025 piece so you're able to rebuild. I just don't understand the premise of you have Ferguson, you have Kittle. Let me just trade another first-round pick for Kelsey. Like, there's no point.
Yeah, like, if you're going to sell assets for a player to upgrade at tight end, like, see what Kelsey and that first can get you. Like, can you get up to Andrews or Laporta or somebody like that using that? But like, there's no point in selling. Like, you're getting you have an aging tight end core in both situations. And again, I wouldn't be totally shocked if George Kittle is more valuable redraft wise than Travis Kelsey is.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. So we're about to be on the clock.
This is so Henry is doing his classic bit here. Henry, in my opinion, I've heard you say stuff like this before. I think it's probably time to start trusting your own evaluations of these players. Because
if you're always right on this stuff, then just trust yourself. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, they're your fantasy teams, and maybe he is evaluating these, but like he hears some good arguments from us or other creators or whatever, and it gets you on to a guy like Roschon Johnson. Like, I liked Roschon Johnson, but I mean, you're a one quarterback guy. I still wouldn't have taken him over Stroud, dude. Like, I definitely wouldn't have told you to do that. Like, even in one quarterback league, like, Stroud was still a valuable enough guy that at 210, you should have probably been willing to pull the trigger there. But yeah, again, if you're regretting these, like, man, I listened to someone else, like, what is one of the biggest things we always talk about during rookie draft season is make your own mistakes, man. Like, if you trust our opinion, that's fine. But if you think we're wrong, like if you don't agree with what we're doing, don't just like blindly follow us, because this game, as much as, we do our research and we have the numbers and stuff to back it up, we're going to be wrong still. Like, we're not going to get every single thing right. So you might as well glean some of what we say, mix it in with your own opinions and be like, you know what? They said last year to take Bryce Young over Anthony Richardson. That didn't work out. We were wrong. Like, obviously, I mean, it could still work out in the long term, but as of right now, it hasn't worked out so far. So if you were like, you know what? I can't believe they're even talking about this when CJ Stroud's clearly the best quarterback in this class, and you listen to us, you're going to hate yourself. You were on CJ Stroud. You should have just listened to yourself.
For sure. By the way, are we, I'm going to point this out because I don't want him to slip too much further because it's just not going to be realistic, but like, are you guys forgetting about Caleb Williams in this draft?
Yeah, I mean, even the quarterback position in general looking like it's getting a little undervalued right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy that I took frickin' CD at this point because I kind of started the run, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, having a Herbert Caleb start is filthy.
Yeah, that's disgusting. That is disgusting.
Jackson said, "Can we see the rest of your picks?" Yeah, when the startup is over, we might make a video recapping it or something like that. So we're only in the 5th round right now. So I would imagine the video won't come out until like closer to the draft because it's probably going to take another couple weeks for the startup to finish.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, we gave a little bit of an update yesterday, and obviously when more stuff unveils, we will be updating more as well. Got talked into Mayor by someone else. Made 3 trades these past few days. Is Metcalf an even trade for Tank Dell? Yeah. I mean, the startup that we're in, Tank Dell went 508, Metcalf went 59.
Yeah, that's crazy. They literally went back they were also the most recent 2 picks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, as well. They were. So
it's funny that's the question you're asking, but yeah, they're probably pretty even in both. Like, I would have said I probably would have preferred Tank Dell prior to the Stephon Diggs trade, but I guess now they're probably like almost exactly identical in terms of value. So
for sure. I am back on the clock here, and I got this guy at the 2-6 in the startup that we did, but I don't know why Kyler Murray is slipping to the mid-second round, but I will take him every single time he slips to the mid-second round.
Yeah, so for me, I personally prefer the other 2 quarterbacks over Kyler Murray.
That's fine.
Trevor Lawrence and Jordan Love, but they would all be kind of relatively in that same area there. Henry says, gave Burrow for Mahomes, sideways move to me. Mahomes did suck last year. I mean, Mahomes didn't suck.
I mean, I would take Mahomes 100 times out of 100 here, and it's not really close for me. Like, if you guys see my startup rankings,
it's a one quarterback league that he's playing in, so it's a little less impactful. But yeah, I mean, I would prefer Mahomes as well still.
Yeah. That's what was offered to me. Yeah, I mean, it depends on your personal preference there. Maybe you're a younger team. You want Tank Dell because he's a younger asset. Obviously, the immediate future there with Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, target competition is going to impact his redraft value. But from a long-term asset standpoint, he is, 24 years old. Metcalf is going to be, 27? He was a 97 birthday, right?
Yep.
Metcalf. So, I mean, like, if you want the, more contending piece, it's going to be Metcalf. If you want the more.
I knew it was going to happen.
What, Trevor?
I mentioned Jordan Love and Trevor. I was like, dude, I would have been over the moon if either of those guys would have fallen to me. And they both get picked like right ahead of me. So what am I going to do here? All three running
wide
backs
receiver.
On the board. Can't even go in that direction.
It's Garrett Wilson. It's not close in my opinion.
It's Wilson. You are correct. It is Wilson.
I gave up.
I suppose Godwin. I could have gone Jaden Daniels there as well, but
that's about fair value, I would say, for Tyreek, especially in a one quarterback. You're getting the points for this year, especially if you're a contending team. I think that's fine.
Yeah, Godwin's a pretty inconsequential asset to move off of. He's kind of like, I view Godwin, Terry McLaurin, like guys like that, Calvin Ridley, like players that, they have top 15 wide receiver points per game in their range of outcomes. But generally speaking, they're only valuable if you're in a deep wide receiver league, 3 wide receiver, 2 flex type of league, full PPR, and you need the production. Otherwise, they're impossible to trade. Like if you're in a league where that's the scoring format, try and sell Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, guys like that. They're impossible. Everybody wants them they'll send you, the 208 for Chris Godwin and think that you should accept that deal. Like they exist in this weird Bermuda triangle of like, you might as well just hold the production. But if you're not a competitive team, you're basically fucked. It's like, what am I supposed to do in that situation?
And there's a lot of those inconsequential wide receiver assets, if that makes sense. Like, I hate to kind of like label them under that broad umbrella, but especially if you're not in like a start 11, start 12, start 13, like heavy, like depth type of league. If you're in a start 9 or 10, like Chris Godwin's the high end, I would say, of that area, but like him, like Deontay Johnson, like these type of like productive, wide receiver 2-3 archetypes. It's like, if you have them as depth on your team, they're solid, but in smaller starting lineup leagues, their production is really not consequential, I would say.
Kirk Cousins gets auto drafted, a third straight wide receiver.
Fuck yeah, baby.
That's the highest I've ever seen Puka Nacua go, for what it's worth, too. I've never seen him go in the first round before.
Yeah, I'm interested. Is he in the chat right now? I'm interested to see what he says about that. Because I got, it's funny because I got Puka at the 301 in the draft that we just did for our startup. Yeah,
that's a hell of a value in that case. Henry says, I gave up Pollard a 2025 first and second for Barkley. 2 that commented on this trade said they feel I lost this one.
It's a little bit expensive.
It's a smidge expensive. I would have been fine with Pollard in a 1 or a first and a second, but not all 3. But I don't think you overpaid by like a shit ton. I think Pollard is almost, we talked about inconsequential assets at wide receiver. Like Pollard is almost in an area at running back where he's an inconsequential asset. But I could be wrong about that. I wouldn't be shocked if Pollard had like a top 20 season next year, but he kind of strikes me as like just a stone cold dead zone RB2 from a redraft standpoint.
For sure. And damn it. Literally 3 of the 4 players in a row that I wanted get sniped back to back to back to back. So
you could go Tyreek,
Daniels, 3-6 too early for me for a potential 1-year asset. Like, I understand the production he gives you, but at the same time, like, there's still the risk that, maybe he retires after the year.
He's literally said he only wanted to play 2 more years last offseason. So
I can't take him over like Olave, for example. Like, I just know what I'm getting with Olave, especially from a youth standpoint and asset standpoint, whereas the volatility with Tyreek, I can't pull the trigger on that over a guy that I can project to play at least for the next 5 to 7 years. And although Olave, you can make the case from a production standpoint, obviously you're missing out big time compared to Tyreek. I also don't think we've seen the ceiling for what Olave could be in the NFL yet, to be honest. It's kind of the Garrett Wilson factor where the quarterback play has kind of inhibited him, but I still think from a talent standpoint, he can reach that DJ Moore career arc where we saw once he got the quarterback play, or not even the quarterback play, but just better quarterback play than Carolina, we were able to see him develop into that 1,300 plus yard receiver. I think Olave can follow that same path.
Yeah, I mean, you're relying on Derek Carr to have like a bounce back season.
I did not realize London was available. That stings.
Yeah. I think for me with Olave, he's like a very difficult asset to hold for a competitive team
tough,
because I really do think you're sacrificing some point production in the short term. I think you're talking about more of like a mid wide receiver 2 than you are wide receiver 1, like you have to draft him as. So for me, it's like I would rather just take London. I would rather just take
easily.
I mean, even Ayuk too. Like maybe not quite like you trade down and you go down to Ayuk a little bit. It's just hard to press the button on Olave for me.
Well, that kind of makes the case for why I think the three, like, if I had seen London, I would have taken London. I just admitted that. If you guys want to get on me like that, go in the comments.
Johnny Taylor going one pick ahead of me. Like Jabloni or whatever his name is it's literally messing me up right now. Lawrence and Taylor were both like top of my board.
But real quick, so yeah, London obviously still the same age, but the quarterback situation there in Atlanta, like I would take London over Olave. And it kind of felt like at the beginning when Kirk Cousins initially signed in Atlanta, like we talked about it. We said London over Olave in our rankings. And a lot of people were like, oh, like how could you go that far? But like now I feel like a lot more people are accepting of London. I mean, I'm seeing this guy when we did our underdog big board yesterday. I believe he went in the mid-second round. So people are warming up to the fact that London is a high target player and now has the type of quarterback that get him that said volume.
Yeah, exactly. There goes Bowers off the board as the tight end too. There goes Waddle. My plan worked here. So my plan was to take Ayuk because I figured this guy had 2 quarterbacks. He wasn't going to take Purdy. So I'm going to stack up Purdy and Ayuk there to go along with Mahomes and Wilson. I debated being like, hey, you know what? I would love to, because this is what I'm doing in our startup league, going with like kind of like a hero quarterback and seeing where the next tier of quarterback starts to fall. But if I can get Brock Purdy at the 402, like I'm going to do it.
Yeah, no, that's really solid value there.
Sent the 101 for the 101, 103, 110. Superflex. I have Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. I think I'm okay with this, to be honest. Like if you were...
Could you have gotten a random 2025 one? Because I believe you probably could have given the
maybe. But like, here's the thing. If you were going to take Marvin at 101 because you have Herbert and Lawrence,
Malik,
I would prefer Neighbors in 110 to Marvin, personally.
I agree. I agree there, but I will say, given the current market, I think that could have been a 2025 one. But who knows? Maybe you did your due diligence. You tried for one. That guy either didn't have his 2025 one or wasn't willing to give it. Like, I understand the valuation here because, again, like if you're making the case Caleb versus Malik Neighbors in this instance, Malik Neighbors goes at the beginning of the 3rd round, but in a lot of startups that I've been in kind of goes in that 2-3 turn. Caleb Williams, although he went at the 2-2 here, probably at the 110. So if you're talking about a difference between a late first round pick between like the 2-9 versus the 110, I would want a little bit more again, but I understand it at the very least. Now I am on the clock here, 20 seconds.
Yeah. Call me crazy, man, but I think the 110 this year, like it seems unappealing because it's the 110, but I really like the second tier wide receivers, dude. Like I feel like we're going to get a couple of these guys in half decent landing spots. So I feel like I'm bullish relative to the rest of the market on the Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas, Lad McConkey's of the world in that 110 area where I'm like, dude, I wouldn't be shocked if these guys are top 25 to 30 wide receivers in Dynasty the second they're drafted, to be honest. Like, so for me, it's like, everybody's like, you look at 103 and 110, you should have gotten more for the 101. But I'm like, dude, you're getting like, if this was 103 and like George Pickens or 103 and Jordan Addison or whatever, which I think like these guys will be similarly valued to, I don't think it's that crazy to just say, yeah, 103 and 110 for the 101 is a fair deal.
I don't know, man. I know I mentioned Caleb like 110 valuation, but knowing the buzz, man, like I can see him working even ahead of a guy like Herbert in Superflex drafts, to be honest.
Caleb,
like I can see that.
People aren't 100% sold on Caleb, though.
But I mean, in some circles, he's valued over Herbert. And if someone offered you 103 and 110 for Herbert, you're not taking that.
I would be shocked to find a single league that say that Caleb is valued over Herbert.
I mean, I've seen people have that valuation if they're more pessimistic.
I've never seen it.
Fair. I mean, like I've seen people pessimistic on Herbert. I've seen people say he's not a first round startup pick.
Yeah, that's fair. I've seen.
I don't value him like that.
Pessimistic of Caleb, to be honest. I think people are way more pessimistic of Caleb than they are of Herbert.
I think he's such a safe asset because if he just plays next year and starts, he's going to be a first round startup pick the year after. And if he goes out
might
there
legitimately
smashes,
be the 101, 102, or 103.
That's what I was saying. If he goes out there and smashes, I think his baseline is top 15 overall startup pick next year because I don't see a world where he crashes and burns. Especially
he's got too much around him. He's got too much around him to be bad. Like if he does crash and burn, I'd be pretty shocked because of how much great talent is around him. It's like it's difficult to fail when you've been set up like this by your team and your coaching staff and your front office there. So for sure. Brunel says, "What's up, guys? I had the 4th pick. I traded back 1 spot to 5 and got a 3rd this year and a 2nd in 2026.
Solid.
Still hoping Neighbors or Odunze. I mean, the only thing I would say about this
if you made this move knowing that you needed Neighbors or Odunze, now you run the risk that the best player available is Jaden Daniels. Is what you're going to say?
I mean, what I was going to say is if you prefer Neighbors to Odunze, I would have stuck at 4 and just put
I agree
there.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you think,
I think in most leagues, it's possible that a quarterback slides to 5. Like, what do you think the percentage chance of that Neighbors is there at 105 across universally all Superflex leagues? I think it's less than 50% that he's there at 105. I actually think that it's more likely that one of Jaden Daniels and Drake May would slide behind Neighbors because I think the 2 landing spots that Neighbors is going to go to, like the Chargers or whatever, like I think he is almost destined to be the 103, 104.
No, I agree. Again, like if you made this deal knowing that you want Neighbors or Odunze, and now that guy at 104 is very likely to take Neighbors ahead of you, and you do prefer Neighbors to Odunze, I wouldn't make that deal. However, if you view Odunze and Neighbors as pretty much inseparable, which to be fair, again, like I have them graded closely, I would take Neighbors, but I mean, Rome Odunze got a 90 for me. Malik Neighbors got a 91. So like they're not that far off in assets. And to be honest, I'll make the claim right now that arguably my favorite pick in this entire draft is Rome Odunze at the 4-4 because I think you can make the case that after that top 8, top 9 tier, like once the Neighbors comes off the board, Odunze could very well be the dynasty wide receiver 10. To be honest,
yeah, no, you could definitely talk me into Olave versus Odunze. Legitimately,
I agree.
You could talk me into it. I think it's obviously difficult and it's risky because you have to project him. He's never played in the NFL, but like let's not pretend like
other rookie receivers.
Let's not pretend like Odunze isn't a significantly better prospect than Olave was.
For sure.
And also too, like even if he went to the Giants or something like that, Odunze still projects the same essentially as Olave. Like I wouldn't be shocked if these guys are literally back to back in dynasty rankings and they're like inseparable in the same tier for the next like 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
But as far as Brunel's trade here, I would have liked to get a better pick this year and just forego the 2nd in 26. Like I would have, like if you could have gotten the 205 this year for making that move, I would have just preferred that, to be honest. But a 2nd and a 3rd to move down 1 spot and you don't really have a preference, I don't think is a bad move whatsoever.
Also, I will quickly make preface to this. So I do like the receivers on the board, but this is kind of the glob that we're talking about. A couple guys that I really do like. You guys are making me take running backs earlier than I want to, man. Like I already have HM, but I think Kyron Williams is just the best player available, so I'm going to take him.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a fair argument. I think go back to the wide receiver glob for a second there.
Yep.
Call me crazy, but I actually really like the competitive wide receivers in this area of the wide receiver. Like I think again, obviously it would depend on your
waiting
build.
on them, right?
If you're not a competitive team, then there's no point of taking Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, those type of guys. But I feel pretty good about their projection from a redraft standpoint. And again, we're talking around 5 through 7 here. So you would have already picked 4 really good competitive assets. So I actually quite like, after taking, say, 1 running back, 2 quarterbacks, and a wide receiver, just absolutely hammering these competitive wide receivers if you need to.
There's one name. Again, Sleeper, I'm sure, is going to clean up their ADP by the time the rookie draft comes. But, man, the rookies are way too fucking low in these rankings is all I'm going to make preface to.
Yeah, I think Worthy and Thomas Jr. are probably, and McCarthy too, should be off the board.
I just realized that after I made my pick, which is not fun.
Yeah. There's Thomas right there. I mean, Rashee Rice, I might have to make the pick on. I know he's kind of risky right now, but I think this is a point that I could very much stomach the risk with him.
Yeah, no, Sleeper definitely has to clean up the rookie ADP because there is no way we can have JJ McCarthy listed as the 93rd ranked player. Brian Thomas listed, what was he, in the 70s? Like, what are we doing? Is that do they have their ADP based off boomer drafts where these rookies fall? Like,
yeah, I think Rice has to be the pick for me here. He's just clearly the best player available, I think.
Yeah,
because both of us had Rice wide receiver 16 or something before the news. Like he probably goes from being the head of that tier of the like Addison, Tank Dell, Zay Flowers type of guys to now he's just kind of in a tier with those guys,
especially now because you have the context that it was 10.8 grams, and like this is a report that was like misconstrued across the board. Like some people said 10.8 grams, some people said 10.8 ounces, some people said 10.8
10.8 ounces is a lot fucking different.
A lot of weed.
Grams.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a shit ton of weed.
For reference, I mean, if you guys are doing the math there, like an ounce, we're talking about a big difference there. We're talking about 28 grams per ounce. So if it's 10.8 grams, we're talking about less than a half ounce. If it's 10.8 ounces, that's completely different.
Yeah. No, you're talking a shit. You're talking a shit ton of weed there. Like you're talking dealer amount of weed, not like, recreational user amount of weed.
I did not think I'd be getting into weed math on stream, but I just helped you guys understand that, I guess.
Yeah. Arthur says, would you trade 109 and 407 for 204 and 205? Definitely not in a one quarterback. Yeah, definitely not. I wouldn't even do it in a super flex, to be honest, but in a one quarterback, especially, I definitely would not. Yeah, I think the 109, I mean, you're talking about wide receiver 4 or 5, potentially even McCarthy or Bowers sliding in a super flex, but at 109, even in a one quarterback league, I still think you can catch the end of that tier 2 of wide receiver and maybe take RB1 there. So for me, I think I would rather hold the 109 unless you can get better assets back.
For sure. Where do we leave off?
Ian Orlando here. He says draft is full on my end. Okay, yeah. So this was we're a little bit further back here. Donka says 12 teams. Yeah.
I don't even have to know who's available. As much as I love the 108 and the 201 and a start 10, only 10 bench spots, I am moving up every single time.
Yeah, dude. You get one of the top 3 QBs or neighbors there, you're going to be laughing. Sure. Sometimes you dominate regular season, then get unlucky in the playoffs. Yeah, that happens, man. I that happened to me in Tone Setter Truthers. I was 12-2 this year or whatever, and 13-1 last year, and I got.
This is way too much of a value on McCarthy. I'm ending a slide. 6-7 is ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think it's ridiculous. I would say I still prefer. You probably don't. I still prefer Bryce Young to JJ McCarthy. I still prefer, unless he goes to Minnesota. If he goes to Minnesota, then I would probably take McCarthy. But if he doesn't go to Minnesota, if he's a Bronco or something like that, I prefer Bryce Young.
Hear me out. Both of them are just misvalued right now, including Levis as well. Because to be honest, outside of Brian Thomas of this receiver range and Rashee Rice, assuming everything's good with him, I would take those 2 quarterbacks over this wide receiver club.
Yeah, no, I would as well. It's tough, though, because it's hard to click the button on them when you know that they should, like in most drafts, they go off the board in like the 6th, 7th round. It's really difficult to just be like, well, this is where they should be going, so I'll just take them here when they don't usually go there. It's like, well, I might as well just punt them even more. And then that's how the room starts. And we've actually even seen that in our startup right now. Bryce, I believe, just went off the board at like 5'7" or 5'8" or something like that.
Is he off the board? I didn't see.
He is, yeah. And most of the board still has that middle tier of quarterbacks, the Deshaun Watson, Will Levis types off in the draft right now. But I think a lot of the times people just punt them because they think they can keep getting them later on. And then usually one person takes one and then the run starts, just like we've seen in this draft here.
For sure. Where are we?
We are right here.
Oh, you're clicking off. That's why you're clicking off them.
Yeah. So yeah, it's because it's covering our faces. That's why. Traded Dotson for Wicks in 307. Already have Watson, but loved Wicks's underlying analytics. Yeah. I mean, like I think both of these guys are quite comparable. So if you have a preference one over the other, just pocketing the 307 is totally fine process to me.
I would agree.
Nick says, do either of you guys have an opinion on Lloyd or Wright? I mean, fuck. I love me. They're both the exact same player, ironically, but Jalen Wright is a better version of Lloyd.
I agree.
The way I look at it, it's like he's a better athlete. He's more explosive. I think he'll get drafted. I mean, they'll probably get drafted around the same in terms of actual NFL draft capital. It might come down to landing spot in DC for these guys, but to me, I prefer Wright in most situations. He says, I think I'll be in position to grab one of them in my rookie draft. Feel like high upside, low floor options. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about 2 guys that in that 202 to like 207 range, give or take. I feel comfortable if you're a competitive team or if you just need some running backs for your roster, taking a shot on these guys, because I think especially Wright has the ability to really, really just bullet his way up the running back rankings if he looks like because we think about these guys, we're like, oh man, this guy needs so much work. He needs like Wright especially. He's like, we look at him and we're looking at his profile and we're like, he doesn't really know how to play running back yet. But one training camp maybe is all it takes for these guys to learn a lot. Like I noticed a huge difference with Rashee Rice, his college tape versus his rookie season. It's like he learned a lot in that one training camp and that early season point. These guys are 21, 22 years old. So you look at these guys and you think, oh man, it's going to take them 2 to 3 years to develop. But at the position like running back, it's like if he has a good running back coach, it might just take him one training camp and a couple preseason games to get up to speed.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I have a long list of when Reagor over Jefferson is a prime example for a lot of people. Like, I know.
Can I just say, like, I really don't know how people came to that conclusion because I'm building
model. Yeah,
I'm building the prospect model right now, and I'm actually genuinely confused why Reagor was considered the analytics darling and Jefferson wasn't, because Jefferson's profile is significantly better than Jalen Reagor's, like significantly, like by every measure. The only thing that I can think of is people were maybe a little excited that Reagor's market share production was a little better. And the fact that I think he was a bit better age-adjusted production as well.
It's more likely.
But again,
makes it back.
Part of why our new model that's coming out will never tell you to draft a guy like Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson is because we have accelerators in there for players who played with other very talented college wide receiver cores. And Justin Jefferson, obviously a great example of that because he had Jamar Chase and Terrace Marshall in the same offense with CEH and Thad Moss and stuff who have played NFL snaps. So the teammate score portion of our prospect model will help you guys mitigate taking, very productive, great numbers receiver because he played for TCU versus a guy who went to a big school, won a national championship, and was an integral part of his offense. Even though the market share numbers are not going to be quite as impressive potentially.
Yeah, all we can do in hindsight is think what went wrong and what's correctable moving forward. Because, again, a lot of us are going to have our misses. Like, for example, you mentioned people would take Reagor over Jefferson. I remember specifically at that part of Dynasty, we're talking about 2020. People were taking that running back class straight up over Joe Burrow, over CeeDee Lamb, over Justin Jefferson.
Two on Justin Jefferson, right? Justin Herbert, too.
Right? Like, we were talking about at that time, like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And it's funny because looking back, the only running back of that class that actually ended up hitting was Jonathan Taylor. Clyde Edwards-Helaire obviously didn't work out. J.K. Dobbins, injury-related, didn't work out. Cam Akers, injury-related, didn't work out. And all those guys at that point were selected within the top 7 of those drafts because the sentiment back then was, I'm just going to wait at wide receiver because I love T. Higgins, I love Michael Pittman. But if you're looking back on it, you could have had CeeDee Lamb and T. Higgins. You could have had Justin Jefferson and T. Higgins. You could have had, Burrow, Herbert, and T. Higgins. You know what I mean? So people felt the need to push the running backs off the board because that was at the time where people were thinking this is the more scarce resource and running backs win championships. And obviously, with the help of the industry, especially, the best ball bros, dynasty bros becoming more knowledgeable when it comes to the shelf life of the position. We've seen the meta shift back towards quarterback and wide receiver. It's just funny because if we had gotten the 2020 class, and let's just say next year's class, 2025 was actually the 2020 class, I bet you a lot of your boards will look completely different than what actually materialized.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be shocked if Burrow was the consensus 101 and, Herbert and Tua were both top 6 picks as prospects.
Lamb
Jefferson, guys like that. Judy in hindsight hasn't worked out, but I think he probably would have found his way still pretty high in those drafts. And then you get maybe Jonathan Taylor's mixed in there, maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire, J.K. Dobbins. Like I know if we had to do the 2020 class again, I still would have bet on J.K. Dobbins again as a top 8 rookie pick for sure. Because his profile was great. It's just he got his health was just a problem in the NFL.
Like knowing there was no injury concerns at the time, yes. But like now, obviously with the hindsight of the injuries, like it's just honestly, he's one of the bigger what ifs, I would say. Because if the guy I really hope the guy can maybe have a nice little back 9 to his career because I still think that Dobbins is one of the most talented running backs in the league. It's just it sucks that he's never gotten a chance to show it. Yeah, because when you shred your ACL and your
Achilles, like how unlucky can you possibly fucking be? Like. The Bucs are looking for a running back to supplement early down production, and J.K. Dobbins is still a free agent right now. Like I would sign him in a heartbeat to a vet minimum or a $2 million, $3 million, $4 million deal, assuming his health is even close to being solid right now. Like I would love him as a compliment to Rashad White.
What
What
are your thoughts on this tier of receiver, like the Cup, the McLaurin, the Godwin, the Cooper, the Ridley, even? Because I
lean towards production over value with these guys.
I think I would agree.
I took
I honestly
Watson
like Cooper
because I think Watson is very much I'll swing for the fences on Watson, but I think Amari Cooper, again, these McLaurin, Godwin, Ridley types, they're fine wide receiver 4 or 5s for a competitive PPR league, but you can't get it twisted with these dudes. They're untradeable, to be honest. Like nobody wants them for what you think they should be worth, and probably what they are worth in terms of production value.
I agree.
They're top 24, maybe top 36 in a worst case scenario, top 15 in a best case scenario type of guys, but you're never getting a first round asset for these guys. Never.
Like the more I think about it, like I probably have to raise. I would say actually Calvin Ridley would probably be the top of that group for me. Now that I think about it, it's close actually. Let me actually see how I have these guys ranked. Because the Cooper's there, Cup, like you said, no pun intended. Like what range are we talking? So where are these off the board? I mean, I guess like Christian Kirk probably went too. Yeah, so we're talking literally like Amari Cooper would be 39 for me. Cooper Cup 40. Mike Evans, Keon Coleman, fucking Calvin Ridley, Josh Downs, Christian Watson in this range as well. But like you said, he's the type of volatile asset that can actually peak up in value. So I don't mind taking him ahead of some of those guys. It really depends on your team. And then you get into
I took him with my team because I already have Rashee Rice, Ayuk, Garrett Wilson, and Christian Kirk. It's like my wide receiver 5 being Watson makes actually quite a bit of sense because by the end of the season, he could be my wide receiver 2 or 3 if he hits his ceiling range of outcomes. Ryan says, "What's a good price to ask for Jalen Waddle?"
It's tricky with him, man.
He's hard, man. I actually don't think he's the type of guy I would want to sell right now because I think you might get shortchanged in terms of what he's actually worth. If we're talking a good price to ask, if you wanted to get him off of your team, I would say trying to get a pick in the 108 to 111 range of this year's rookie draft plus a mid-second in, say, 2025 would be about what I would look for a guy like Jalen Waddle.
You said 108?
Yeah, if you can get 108, 109, 110, 111 for him plus a 2025 second, I think that's about a fair selling price for Waddle.
If you're selling Waddle, okay, I agree. Because honestly, from a buying standpoint, call me crazy, I think his value is the 108.
No, I agree, but I think if you're selling him, you'd want 108
I agree. Okay,
or something, or 109 plus a 2. If you want to minimize the board real quick, just so you can see the whole thing.
Sorry, my apologies.
Or scroll down either one.
My team listed. But he is one of the assets that is relatively weird because if we're talking about it, obviously the ceiling we saw a couple years ago, but Tyreek being there obviously does impact his overall, I think, redraft ceiling to a certain degree. Like people don't want to acknowledge it, but I do feel like it's kind of the T. Higgins factor where a sense where you can't command 10 targets per game, 11 targets per game, then it's kind of hard to hit that upper echelon of value in Dynasty. So I really do feel like he's the type of asset that probably peaks maybe as like the wide receiver 8 moving forward, I would say, if he has a bounce back year. But other than that, it's really tough to see him climb higher.
No, he's my age, dude. He's gonna be 26 this year. Like he's not young either. Like everybody probably assumes he's like 23, 24. Like he's like gonna be 26 this year. It's like it's not like he has much higher to go, even if he does have a bounce back season hypothetically.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It kind of comes back to the fact where, for example, in our startup that we did, I traded up using a second and a third to go up and get Puka, and basically the pick that I was at ended up being Waddle. And I mean, if we're talking it through, would you rather have Waddle the second and third, or would you rather have Puka? And keep coming back to the fact, man, like give me Puka every single time because I know what he represents at the top of the wide receiver position. And I know if he has another year like he did this past year as a rookie, you can make the case that this guy's the wise. Yeah, you can make the case that this guy is a top 5 wide receiver in Dynasty.
You can even probably make that case right now, to be honest.
I think you can, yeah.
If you're projecting forward, I guess. Mr. Keeve said, in a 12-team, full PPR, half tight end premium, Superflex start 11, best ball Dynasty. A lot of rules there. Set my 202 and 203 and 26 first for the 105. I'm stacked at wide receiver and need a QB2. Currently have Herbert and Minshew, I'm assuming he means here. I don't like the thought process of I need a QB2. And I think the price tag that you gave up was probably overall solid. But I would caution you to say, like, if Herbert and, against best ball, if Herbert and, say, Jaden Daniels or Drake May, which is no guarantee that they'll even be there because it could be neighbors that you're looking at there, is what's going to push you over the top. I would say, like, really be honest with your team and really audit your team here, because it's possible you might not be competitive yet anyways. But if you do get Drake May or Jaden Daniels at 105, I think the price tag overall that you made this trade for is stomachable for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Henry says, glad you guys are on today. I was bored out of my mind. Yeah, dude, the NFL draft has no business being at the end of April. It should be like this weekend. Like, I have no fucking idea why it's at the end of April. I'm assuming it's because of like top 30 visits and all this kind of stuff. But to be honest, man, this time of year is a absolute cesspool for takes on these prospects. Like, I'm so tired of the Drake May slander. It's insane. I can't even go and log into Twitter anymore.
Oh, it's insane, bro. It's insane. Like I'm pretty sure I saw somebody say that Drake May was a tier under JJ McCarthy. And guys, I've
heard Bo Nix and Michael Penix over Drake May takes. I've seen it.
I saw another take that apparently Penix is at minimum a top 3 quarterback in this class. And it's like, are we watching the same games, or are you guys just watching the games and evaluating?
They're watching the Texas game only, which admittedly was his best game. And maybe we could point to, okay, one thing that I maybe should have done last year was evaluate CJ Stroud more on the basis of that Georgia game. But the difference between CJ Stroud and Michael Penix is the profile, not just that one game sample, because that they do have in common. It was like that playoff game performance that they had was great. And, you know, he had all this upside and that kind of stuff in that game. But again, like, I can't get there with Penix, man. I think, full disclosure, I think all 6 of these quarterbacks are good quarterbacks and could start for an NFL franchise. It just means the class is good. We don't need to say that Penix is the top 3 quarterback in the class. Just say you like Michael Penix.
The other thing too is I feel like a lot of people misconstrue in terms of quarterback evaluation. Again, am I claiming right now that I am a better quarterback evaluator, or am I claiming that you're a better quarterback evaluator? Am I claiming that any of us on YouTube are better quarterback evaluators than, you know, people that have played the position? No. What I'm saying is a lot of times you'll notice, especially from former quarterbacks, because we actually had this talk. Somebody commented, I believe, on the last live stream we did, because we were having quarterback talk, and they were like, oh, this guy played in the NFL. Why would I take what you say over him? It's like, I respect and I fully acknowledge and appreciate their knowledge of the X's and O's of the game. Playing the quarterback position is tough. The one thing I noticed when it comes to, you know, the Kurt Warners, the JTs, the Kurt Benkerts, like a lot of the quarterback analysis is, it's not exactly projecting what these guys will do at the next level. It's more so evaluating their college tape and ranking them based off what they did in college. And that is the biggest thing that I have a problem with when it comes to quarterback evaluation for the NFL, is because the NFL, especially when it comes to young quarterbacks, you're not drafting them to be the finished product. You can make the case right now that Michael Penix today, if you're a big Michael Penix guy, Michael Penix today is a better quarterback with the footwork, you know, the whatever.
Which I
like,
still don't agree with, but he definitely
I don't agree, but like
he does some things better than Drake May for sure.
But that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, if people want to point to the footwork, people want to point to the spotty ball location specifically for Drake May, I understand why you're lower on his film purely. However, I will point that the highlights on the film, in terms of like what he is able to do, not highlights like watching highlight.
He's also not just the highlights of everybody talks about him like he's just flashes,
but that's what,
and he totally.
That's basically what I'm. That's basically what I'm. Yeah, that's basically what I'm referencing is the flashes of high end play, the size, the mobility, the arm talent, everything that he has at his disposal. Everything that he has as at his disposal from a trait standpoint needs to be included into the equation. So, judging these quarterbacks as finished products, like what they are now is what they will be in the NFL, is the biggest gripe that I have with analysis. Is people are so focused on what the 21-year-old quarterback does wrong rather than what he could do right at the next level.
Yeah, not to mention, I think it should be on like almost like a weighted scale of, okay,
I don't even know who to pick. I wasn't looking. Okay,
you better pick somebody.
I just took Njoku. I didn't know.
So the 21-year-old quarterback, what he does wrong, right? Everybody's overvaluing that.
Yeah.
But there is flaws with the 23 and 24-year-old quarterbacks, which, in my opinion, are
more concerning
enough. They're more concerning, exactly. Considering the level of starting experience that Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and Jaden Daniels have. You look at these guys and you're like, we should care way more that these guys have flaws than we do that Drake May and JJ McCarthy have flaws. And we're like valuing them equally, which is not like, this is the whole reason age-adjusted production exists. And we know this at wide receiver and running back. that it can, factor in, especially at wide receiver. But nobody cares at quarterback. And it's like, it matters less at quarterback. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't matter quite as much as it does at wide receiver. But if you have like very, very solid, consistent 80% of the time, you look like a first round bona fide top 3 pick quarterback like Drake May does, then like everything else that he does is quite coachable. And Michael Penix and Jaden Daniels and these guys, like maybe they're more consistent 85% of the time instead of 80% of the time, but like that 5% is pretty negligible considering the extra experience that they have.
I'll fight back a little bit because maybe not necessarily from a pure age standpoint, but from an experience standpoint at quarterback, it's the most cerebral position in the NFL. There is so much you have to digest and understand. I mean, especially older quarterbacks will understand the cerebral nature. And again, I appreciate the work that is put in from a mental standpoint to be able to play quarterback in the NFL. But I also think we have to outline that for college guys. Like the 21-year-old 2-year starter versus the 23, 24-year-old transfer should not be evaluated on the same playing field from a cerebral standpoint. Because you're basically saying by then, once Drake May, once JJ McCarthy are 23, 24 on the same level playing field from an age standpoint, they'll have more experience under their belt, and maybe some of the young errors that they make right now will be corrected by then. That's why you're taking them in the first round. That's why you're taking them in the top 5 to 10, seeing the physical makeup and projecting forward if they click in cerebrally what they could be at the next level. Because, I mean, Justin Herbert's the prime example. People knew the traits, people knew the mobility, the big arm, but they weren't necessarily certain what he was from a cerebral standpoint. Part of that was because of the Oregon offense, but we saw as soon as he goes to the NFL, what we thought about this player was actually impacted by their college situation. And when they were given the prime stage to be able to show what they can do, more experience working with an NFL offense, working in NFL offseason. I mean, it's unfair to say anybody's going to be Justin Herbert, but Trevor Lawrence, another example where his rookie season looked completely different than his second season.
Yeah. And, it's funny because Drake May obviously has drawn comparisons to Justin Herbert
and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, no, literally, that's my comp for him. So it's really funny that I have a victory lap in the pocket that when Drake May, like I can't wait until Drake May is 23 years old. He'll be in his second NFL season probably at that point in time. It'd be funny to be like if Drake May is like tearing the NFL up hypothetically, like he's a franchise stud quarterback. It'd be like, hey, remember when Drake May was thought of as a 21-year-old that he wasn't going to become this? Imagine this Drake May that we're seeing in the NFL in college right now. And that's how much better he would have been than Michael Penix and Jaden Daniels if they were evaluated on the same age and experience level playing field.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. By the way, holy crap, the wide receiver board is completely dried up.
I hammered like 6 of them, so that's partially my fault.
No, you're chilling. I mean, my best available player is just going to be Jalen McMillan. And although we don't have access to draft capital, I'm just going to be under the assumption that he does get day 2 capital. So I will take McMillan if he is here.
Get him on the Broncos ASA frickin' P, dude. I need him on the Broncos so goddamn bad. He's McMillan? A perfect fit for their scheme. He would play the Michael Thomas role. He would be perfect for it, dude. He would be perfect. Like Judy's gone, right? So the role, the square peg, round hole situation that they were doing with Jerry Jeudy, McMillan is actually a perfect fit for that role.
I would also love him on the Cowboys, but I would say that about any good receiver in this class.
Yeah. Josh asked, how's Mexico? Doing good. We're just in an Airbnb in Playa del Carmen right now. So we're, ripping downtown for some food and we did like a food tour with like an authentic, like Mayan, like foodie yesterday. So he took us to some like real fucking hole in the wall, not a tourist in sight type of places yesterday, which were like unbelievably good. And we had some like chorizo, like carne asada and stuff. Like it was really like fucking good. It was really good. Yeah. So I'm on the clock again here. I'm kind of just like, I built out like a zero RB competitive type of roster here. So I'm going to take Aaron Jones to go along with my Ramondre Stevenson. And if you look at my roster, like my build so far is all just like, I went 6 deep at wide receiver and just absolutely hammered. TJ Hawkinson around 6 to me was kind of insane that I got him there. So I grabbed him there. And then I got some zero RB guys. I mean, knowing that you can get Ramondre Stevenson and Aaron Jones here, like I'm feeling pretty confident that I can field a good lineup here.
I will say with Hawkinson, like I have Kittle rated ahead of him. I am concerned about the knee injury.
Dude, at 6'2", that shit's baked in, bro. I'm not even concerned at all. At that
the reason why I'm pointing that is because I have Kittle ranked higher and he went 7-8.
Yeah. I'm a little sick that Justin Fields just went because I actually kind of wanted to grab him at 12 too because I have Mahomes and Purdy. So having an upside QB3 would have kind of went with my build there. I might just grab one more running back here. Honestly, do I think that it's smart to grab a running back off of an ACL tear? No, but when that running back is Nick Chubb, I feel a little bit better for it. So,
I mean, I did that too, just in the 9th round because Jonathan Brooks at the 9-6 is pretty damn nice money.
Yeah, that was hella good value. I'm really actually pissed that I took, who did I take Jonathan Brooks over? Oh, I took Christian Watson there, and I was like, you know what, I probably should have taken Brooks. Mahomes was outscored by Purdy and Love last year in both points per game and total points, so I call that sucking for the best real life quarterback. Yeah, I mean, like again, maybe it was a down expectation from Mahomes standard, but like we got a floor season out of Mahomes is kind of the point in Dynasty. It's like what his bad seasons are still top 10 quarterback production.
I mean, fuck. And the other thing that I'll point to is Dak was the quarterback 2 or 3 in fantasy this year overall points per game. And then you look at his points per game the year he got hurt a couple or 2 years ago at this point, and he was quarterback 15 maybe in points per game, and he fell off a cliff from a dynasty value standpoint for a lot of people. So the fact is, like, quarterbacks that have high end ceilings, especially in fantasy, are going to have some down years. The thing is that when Mahomes has that down year, he's still the 102 in the startup.
Yeah, that's the difference there. It's like even guys like Herbert and Kyler are going to fluctuate a little bit more, but Mahomes, like Burrow blew his fucking shoulder out last year and didn't move a single spot in my startup rankings. So these top quarterbacks don't really do much.
Geno Smith at the 12-7 is insane value.
Yeah, that is crazy good value there. I like that. 12-team Superflex start 11, 1.5 tight end premium. Give CJ Stroud 108, get Geno, Waddle, and early first 107. No. There's zero chance I would trade CJ Stroud for that.
I'm not trading. Stroud.
I would take Stroud over that whole package by a country mile.
Also, what's the point of the 108 for 107 swap?
Yeah, like to me, there's no way I would do this. No way.
Geno, Waddle. It's basically the guy's adding the 107.
Guaranteed me that was 101 next year, I still wouldn't even consider it.
Literally, though. I mean, if you took the 108 off of your side and kept the 107 on his side, I would still very comfortably take Stroud.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on 101 next year? Like, you know how, like, obviously this time last year, we knew it was going to be Caleb Williams.
Luther Burden.
I don't think it'll end up being Luther Burden. I think everybody assumes it'll be Luther Burden, but I don't think it will be. I think it'll either be a back or it'll be a quarterback.
Why wouldn't it be Luther Burden?
Because Luther Burden's got some flaws in his game. He was heavily used on, screen passes and design touches. He's not huge. He's like 5'11", like 200 pounds. Like, he's not a massive receiver.
Fair.
And that's his listed size too. He might even be smaller than that. Like, if he comes in 5'10", 190, like, people are going to be a little concerned there. Like, are we going to take that guy 101? Like, I don't know. He's a good wide receiver prospect, and he definitely has a great profile, but like, dog, like, to me, I think whoever ends up being RB1 will be picked ahead of him, and whoever ends up being QB1 might get picked ahead of him as well.
Oh, I just completely disagree, to be honest. I think he's going to be the pretty set 101.
I think he's the safest safest bet to be the 101 right now. But to be honest, dude, like Janty, Ollie Gordon, Quinshon Judkins, I would not be even remotely shocked if these guys are tearing up college football next year. They're easily thought of as like 1-1. Like, maybe we're going back to this 2020 discussion that we had already. But I wouldn't be shocked if one or two of those guys go ahead of Luther Burden next year.
I think that'd be psychotic because I think Luther Burden's probably floor is going to be a 4th round startup pick.
Yeah. Again,
and projecting, like, they would need to be Breece Hall in order for him to even be in the same conversation.
But
although I think they can.
Amongst wide receivers, we're talking about guys that are going to, like, we're talking about Burden as potentially a top 12 to 15 dynasty wide receiver the second he's drafted. I don't think 12. Guarantee, man. I think that we're going to see more flaws in his game because he had a great season last year. It'd be really hard to do better than what he did last year. Like, he had almost as good of a season as Malik Neighbors this year.
Well, that's what I mean. He had 100 yards per game this year. And I mean, like, we're discounting the Ohio State game because, like, it was a 14-3 bowl game and nobody really played on either side for the most part. But like, you're talking about a sophomore receiver in the SEC with games of 150 on LSU, 140. What's it called against Kansas State? I believe he had.
I guess I know prospect fatigue is going to sink in a little bit with this dude.
Florida.
And I wouldn't be shocked if because if somebody has a monster Heisman winning running back season next year, if it's Quinshon, if it's Janty, if it's Hampton, if it's Ollie Gordon, some of these guys, they're going to be elite running back prospects if that happens. Like if Janty goes out there and has like 70 catches or some shit, he's legit going to be the 101 in drafts, in my opinion.
The problem is if Luther Burden is a top 15 NFL draft pick, you're not taking a running back over him, period.
Well, let me ask you this. If Jahmyr Gibbs was in 2025's class, would he be the 101?
I mean, knowing what we know now, or knowing his prospect profile at the time?
Coming out of his sophomore year when he transferred to Alabama.
No.
I think he would have been, to be honest. I think he would have been.
Right after the NFL draft or prior to the NFL draft?
No, before he went to Alabama. After his second year at Georgia Tech, the information we have on these prospects, he would be 1 year left to play.
He would not be ranked over Luther Burden. No chance.
I don't know, man. I think
prior to his Alabama year?
Prior to his Alabama year. Yeah, because his Georgia Tech profile was elite still.
There's no shot, brother. Luther Burden had 100 yards per game in the SEC as a true sophomore receiver.
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm posing questions here.
Fair. Sorry. Like, I honestly just feel like this goes back to the market. Like if the market was in 2020, absolutely, you could make the case that 2 or 3 running backs probably go ahead of him. But knowing the market now, how much it values wide receiver, the market already knows ahead of time this is an uncertain quarterback class. Yes, it's got guys like Beck, it's got guys like Shedeur Sanders, maybe could work into that range. But people know right now if they're buying a 2025 first-round pick, they're not buying it for the quarterbacks. They're buying it for Luther, and they're buying it for those said running backs. So it kind of comes to the point where if we know that there's 2 or 3 running backs in next year's class and the running back landscape comparatively to the wide receiver landscape isn't as high from an upside standpoint, because, I mean, we're seeing, for example, Bijan Robinson was a clear-cut 101 in 2023's rookie drafts, and he's going, the 206 right now in startups? Like, if Luther Burden goes out there, has a top 15 wide receiver season in year 1, he's going to be a top 15 startup pick.
I guess. I think the 2025 class will represent an influx of young talent at running back to the point that we might be looking at these guys and be like, yeah, like other than Bijan, Breece Hall, and Jahmyr Gibbs, like we'll take these next 2 or 3 locked and loaded absolute stud running back prospects over a 26-year-old Jonathan Taylor at that point, a 29-year-old Christian McCaffrey at that point. Unless, we get some 2024 backs that emerge potentially like a Jonathan Brooks or whatever. But I wouldn't be shocked if we're looking at these guys next year. It's like these guys are going to sleepwalk their way right into top 5 dynasty running back status. Why are we not taking them 101, 102, or 103?
And I feel like that could be a thought experiment by 2026. Why us knowing how to value the running back position.
To me, I'm going to be high. I think I'm going to end up being higher on this running back class than other people are. Because especially once I have the running back model, built, and I can say that these guys are definitively as good of prospects as Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, and probably not Bijan, but like at least the Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs types. I'm going to say, yeah, absolutely, unequivocally. If they get first round, top 50 draft capital or whatever, they're going to be top 5 dynasty running backs.
I just think personally that as much as I like, for example, I really like Ted McMillan. I really do feel like Luther Burden, then Ted McMillan, and those running backs is kind of how I'd view it. Like, I think Luther Burden may be a slight tier above those assets. Whereas, like, if you argue, like, again, I really like Ted McMillan. I think he's going to be a really stud. Oh, I have like no time left. Okay.
Take Corley. Sure. Hopkins. Yeah. There you go.
I just clicked.
I think the other obvious thing is that if Beck, Dart, somebody emerges at quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, they're going to be end up being the 101 most likely.
Yeah, like realistically, okay, not talking about the quarterbacks is like we mentioned. Like, I think personally, like the early leaders probably would be Beck and Shedeur Sanders from an NFL draft capital standpoint. Like, I feel comfortable saying at this point, like they're the 2 more likely quarterbacks to go round 1. Outside of those guys, like we're talking the main 2 running backs specifically with I think Gordon and Janty, like they're pretty clearly from profile standpoint going to be 1 and 2. You think when you did the experiment?
Yeah, I think that the seniors have a chance to get up there again. I think Judkins has a chance to get up there.
Judkins right too. That would be another one. Trey Henderson,
Hampton and Singleton and Jordan James. Like the class is just fucking loaded, dude. Well, like I wouldn't be shocked if any one of those guys was RB1.
I mean, the other context there is with no quorum, who knows if Donovan Edwards gets back to the valuation he was prior to this year.
Well, dude, if Rocket Sanders is healthy this year, he could still legit be a top 3 running back next year. I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about of the top 24 picks, first and second round rookie picks in 2025, we're talking 14 to 16 running backs in that area.
outside of 2020, I mean, because like obviously we know the context that a lot of those backs.
It actually reminds me a lot of 2018. Potentially, where you had Saquon, Chubb, Michelle, Rashad Penny types. I actually think it's going to end up looking like that, where one of these running backs emerges, maybe not as a second overall pick, but a top 15 draft pick, like a Janty or something like that.
That's kind of the issue that I have is with the new NFL. Like, for example, if we were drafting in 2018,
we just saw Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs go top 15.
Right, Jahmyr Gibbs, actually, that's fair, but it took the Lions, I would say, like reaching above consensus. Whereas with Bijan, it's like, yeah, he went 8th overall.
I think Gibbs would have went top 20, even if the Lions don't take him.
You think Bijan is a locked-in top 5 pick if we were in 2015? Probably top 3 pick.
You mean in a startup?
No. I'm talking about in the NFL draft because he did go to.
He might have been like the second pick in the draft.
But that's what I'm kind of saying. It's like it took a Bijan level prospect profile to go into the top 10. Like I don't think we're going to see another top 10 running back unless they're like Bijan Robinson level. And even then,
we saw Najee Harris and ETN go in round 1. Also.
Late first, yeah. No, I think late first is totally in play. Like I'm not.
I think we could see a couple two running backs go in the late first next year. I wouldn't be shocked. Anyways, let's speed through some interesting questions here if we can.
For sure.
And then we'll recap our teams here. Ryan says, should we write off Zach Moss because of his injury risk? I think he's a fine like 0 RB guy to hold on your roster, to be honest. I would prefer to have both of those guys that you mentioned here, Stevenson and Swift, but easily. As like a third or a fourth running back, I think he's fine.
Yeah. Then only one went in the entire second round. Oh, that makes sense. So for reference, he per Cousins noticed that we went Lamb, Jefferson, Chase, St. Brown. So that's why he said, okay, you know what? Maybe the room is taking a bunch of wide receivers. I should go with Puka and Marvin at this turn. I would agree with you with the Marvin pick, but I personally at that spot, as much as I love Puka, I would have rather have gone with the 101 and the 102, aka Caleb and Marv. That's the only difference I'd have. It's just it is unfortunate that right after you make those two picks, the entirety of the second round outside of that is 10 of 11 non-wide receivers, and the only one that took a receiver was you got Garrett Wilson at a crazy value at the 211.
Yes, for me, when your room is doing one thing, you kind of are better off doing the other. So if the opposite scenario had played out and all the first 10 picks were quarterbacks or something like that, then it makes sense to go a wide receiver, right? I get the idea. Hey, I want to secure the end of a tier, but again, we talk about this as it relates to having a hammer running back and redraft. It's like you getting Lamb and the other guys getting Jefferson and Chase. It's like them taking those top wide receivers. You're inherently at a disadvantage by taking Puka Nacua as your first wide receiver because your first wide receiver is worse than those first wide receivers. So it's better for you, in my opinion, to double up on a tier 1 running back and tier 1 wide receiver still, or a tier 2 wide receiver and a tier 2 quarterback, and have the advantage be that you have a tier 2 of both positions rather than just like double tapping wide receiver. At least in my opinion. You also could have went with a running back if you wanted to, but I probably wouldn't have.
Well, that plays into my valuation because we've talked about a little bit the second tier, I would say, of the quarterback position in Dynasty. You have a little bit higher, and I have the top 3 receivers baked in, and then the next tier. That kind of plays into it where, although I really like the outlooks of those guys, I think there's a pretty big drop off both from a point per game standpoint and from a value standpoint to the Lamar, the Hurts, the Stroud, the Mahomes, the Allen. So that then at that point, I would rather get that certainty at wide receiver, which you can make the case that Lamb is just as liquid of an asset as any of the quarterbacks it could have taken at that spot. But I'm getting that advantage at wide receiver, and I'm still able to get a guy like Kyler Murray to fall to me, who has the upside from a production standpoint to match some of those high-end quarterback ones. So it's a lot, it's a big game theory in this aspect where you're understanding both the valuation from a liquidity standpoint, but understanding if I'm taking the quarterback 7 off the board, where is my competitive advantage?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the whole theory behind it. So Henry asked, did you guys see Puka coming? Nobody saw him coming to the degree that he did. I will say, building out the prospect model right now, had I had it last year, he would have been on every single one of my goddamn teams. Not thinking that he would have turned into what he turned into, but at least being like, this is one of the best sleepers in the class. Again, if somebody was in on Puka, quote unquote, they thought he was a great sleeper. And sleepers don't usually turn into top 10 dynasty wide receivers. They usually turn into Jaden Reed or, somebody in that range. But yeah, you hit the nuts, obviously, if you were on Puka. So no, I did not see Puka coming. I wish I would have scouted him further than just ancillary look like I had on him, preliminary look that I had on him. I was like, you know what? He has an interesting PFF grade, yards per route run, but on film I saw what I thought was an average athlete, an average player, and I was obviously wrong about that. And he also, for what it's worth, went to the best possible scheme he could have went to. So that's all factored into what Puka's range of outcomes were. But had I had the prospect model that I'm building right now last year, I would have literally drafted him every single fourth round of my rookie drafts.
For sure. By the way, Nick, you took that guy behind the woodshed. That is the classic woodshed move. Pitts is far over this side on his own. And you
I wouldn't say far over.
I would say so
on Pitts, but yeah, I would still take him over the rest of the side. But yeah, the 209 cancels out at least, Connor say out of that deal, and then you it's Pitts and
Kelsey. You got a free Jacoby Myers as well. Yeah, you took that guy over the top. HM versus ETN. Do you have a hard stance? I believe that they're valued appropriately as top 9 running backs. I personally would take Achane, both because A, he's a younger asset, B, he's tied to a better offense, in my opinion, and C, he's the type of explosive playmaker that I can see getting up to the RB3 overall in dynasty aspects, kind of similar to the Jahmyr Gibbs path. Whereas, as much as I like ETN, even if he has a productive year, he's going to be 26 next season.
Yeah. ETN. I like ETN. I think he's one of the more, I think he's somewhat, because some people like right here, Nick says ETN and Kenneth Walker seem so overrated to me.
I don't think you're totally.
I wouldn't lump him with Walker. And I also don't think you're totally wrong in the sense that like he's not a secure asset and that kind of thing. But I noticed that ETN and Walker, especially Walker, slide to the point in a startup that I'm actually quite willing to take them, because I think that mid to low end RB1 upside is actually worth a 6th round startup pick where you can get Kenneth Walker. I mean, he went to 7.5 in this draft. It's like, I still expect him for the next 2 to 3 years to be a mid to low end RB1 projection. So getting that at that point in time, just because he has no elite ceiling because of Charbonnet's presence, to me is a good discount that you're getting. As far as like the stance, I don't think it's a hard stance at all, but I do prefer HN as well.
Well, the way I kind of see it is when we were talking about round 6 running backs going 2 years ago, they were going off of very safe projections at wide receiver. But now we're seeing the wide receivers get propped up. We're seeing the not second tier, but like the mid-range, the quarterback 2s in Dynasty kind of slip a little bit to the point where when I'm evaluating a guy with RB1 potential versus like Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, guys like that. I prefer Levis because obviously Levis, I believe, has the upside to be a top 12 dynasty quarterback. But specifically, I would say the Mayfield, the Watson, the Kirk Cousins. Watson's a little bit more of a volatile asset. Like those type of guys, I would just rather take the cleaner projection at running back with like a Kyron Williams, for example.
Yeah, dude, that tier of quarterback is so interesting and fascinating to me because I would be curious to know like the QB 14 to 18 every single year. I'm sure it looks like something like this. 2 of them become unusable assets 1 year later. One of them maintains his value, and one of them skyrockets. Between Watson, Levis, Bryce Young, I guess probably once JJ McCarthy is drafted, he'd be lumped into that area, maybe slightly ahead of it as well.
Goff.
And then Goff and Baker Mayfield. Between those guys, I wouldn't be shocked if 3 of them go down, 2 of them go slightly up or keep their value, and then one of them skyrockets. And
call me crazy.
In that area, my money would probably be on Bryce Young, Will Levis, or JJ McCarthy to be the one that skyrockets. But even Deshaun Watson, man, like it wasn't that long ago that we were saying Deshaun Watson still had elite upside. He still is the best runner of this group as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to add context. The reason why I do prefer those 3 young guys to the, the older guys is A, like you mentioned, the value accrual standpoint. Obviously, you're going to have context. If you're a top contender, and maybe you take a Goff because he can give you, quarterback 12 point per game production this year, hypothetically. But from specifically a value standpoint, from a startup perspective, JJ McCarthy, Bryce Young, Will Levis, specifically JJ McCarthy because he's a rookie versus those guys going on to year 2. If JJ McCarthy has a bad rookie season, worst case scenario, it's pretty much a little bit lower where he's being selected right now. He's probably still a top 8 round startup pick in this instance. If he had a bad rookie season, if he had an okay rookie season, you could even make the case he probably is a 4th or 5th round startup pick, because then you would say, well, he showed some signs.
I think he would stay the same, give or take.
Well, the reason why I add that is because Levis went comparatively a lot lower than JJ McCarthy in terms of expected draft capital. He had a solid rookie season, and he's still a 6th round pick. So I think if JJ McCarthy had a very similar rookie season to Will Levis this upcoming year, because of the draft capital, he would inherently be valued higher. So if we're talking about the median and the low range of outcome as not being that bad, with the high range of outcome is literally these guys being top 15 startup picks, I would gear towards that way. Because if Deshaun Watson crashes and burns this year, he's a dead asset.
Yeah, he's Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bryce is the one guy that I still have no fucking idea what to do with, because I think on some levels, he doesn't even belong in this area. He should be up with Purdy and Tua. And on some level.
From a talent standpoint, yeah, for sure.
From a talent standpoint, the fact that he was the first pick in the draft, again, are they building around him perfectly? No, but they're doing what they can. They'll probably add another guy at the top of the second round and stuff. If they go into the season with, say, Bryce Young, Deontay Johnson, who else did they signed a tight end or something?
They have Thielen too, which they have
Thielen too.
If great, but
they grab Lad McConkey, Xavier Worthy, or Adonai Mitchell in the second round or whatever. You could talk me into Bryce Young being a 4th or a 5th round starter pick on the high end, but it's tough right now to project that because it was so bad his rookie year. And like, it's kind of Trevor Lawrence-y to some degree, where you could just be like, he was the first pick in the draft. It's a bad team. Don't worry about it. He'll be better going forward. But at the same time, it's like, he was bad enough that I'm legitimately concerned.
Well, the problem is that year of the 2021 quarterbacks, specifically Fields, Zach Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence, it's so funny because Trevor Lawrence
scarred us a little bit. It's scarred the community right now.
Well, because they were all they were all 3rd round startup picks at that point. And I would say Trevor definitely hit because even now he's still a 2nd round startup pick, and he peaked as like the 108 in startups, 107 in startups. So I would say that's definitely a hit. Fields, it's like, if you had the right timing and you knew to get off after he peaked, absolutely a hit if you could have sold him as the 109, the 110 in startup value. And obviously the big bust there would be Zach Wilson. So these profiles, I would say Bryce Young's profile is relatively similar to all 3 of those guys. And they were 3rd round startup picks after the 2021 season. So we're kind of getting a discount in that aspect. But the problem is people are scarred specifically from Zach Wilson. And now what Fields has turned into, to the point where you can't take him in the 3rd round because of that risk level. But it starts becoming more and more appealing once you get into round 5, round 6, like you kind of said.
Yeah, I ended up selling a Bryce Young share a couple days ago. I sold Bryce Young for 112 and 205. To me, that represented a good enough.
Yeah, that's good out.
I can't be focused on, I spent the 102 on this guy or the 103, wherever I got him in the
sunk cost fallacy.
Sunk cost fallacy. I looked at it. I'm like, is 112 and 205 worth more than Bryce Young right now? And in my opinion, I mean, we saw Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, those type of guys go off the board 1 round later. To me, they should have went in the same round, if not potentially even ahead of Bryce Young. I think if you can still get a round 1 rookie pick plus a mid-second, a 205 that I can get, and Xavier Legette, potentially a RB2 or 3 in the class, maybe even grab a 5th quarterback that went high in the 2nd round or even in the 1st round that falls or whatever. To me, I think getting both of those assets set you up to insulate you to, even if Bryce Young does hit big and he goes up to a 4th round starter pick or 3rd round starter pick, that's probably his ceiling. Like Bryce, I don't anticipate Bryce Young being a mid-2nd round starter pick with a good 2nd year.
Well, the one thing I got to ask you then, because you sold obviously 112, 205 for Bryce Young. If you got offered 112 plus 205 for the 108, would you take it?
Yeah, probably. I would.
You would? Okay, so that basically shows
I like this area of the class. That's part of why I made the trade also, is that by 205, I still expect to get Troy Franklin, Xavier Legette, guys like that, or high-end running back talent, RB2 or 3 in this class. So for me, the 205 to 208 is that last area of this rookie class that I feel really good about. And if we get some good nutted landing spots, the 112 will probably gain some value as well, because, you know, if we do get Worthy to the Chiefs, if we do get McConkey to this, you know, that team or the other or whatever, we're going to be in a situation where we're looking at, it's like, hey, actually, you know, like 14, 15 of these guys actually have pretty high-end value from this rookie class.
Fair. I was just posing the question because I think I would lean the 108 there, knowing the quarterback equity plus Bowers plus a Dunze on the table there. But at the same time, I acknowledge like that's probably about the equivalent value. And especially, again, it's going to depend on your league type. If you're in a start 12, start 13, you're absolutely taking the 2 pieces. If you're in a start 8, start 9, you're absolutely taking the 1 piece. So there's a lot of context that is involved in Dynasty and why it's so unique of a game, because we're talking about redraft, and obviously we'll talk about, you know, different sizes of redraft leagues, but everybody's working in the same playing field. Everybody's working with the same amount of draft assets in terms of you're drafting your round 1, your round 2, downwards to probably your round 13 or 14 on a typical redraft lineup. But in Dynasty, because of the rookie pick element, because of the permanence of your roster versus the non-permanence of a redraft league, there's a lot more implications, a lot more assets to be able to think from a variable standpoint.
Yeah, let me ask you this. That 112 and 205 that I got for Bryce Young, and then we'll actually recap some of our teams and see if we have any other interesting questions.
Sounds good.
Hypothetically, Bo Nix goes 12 to the Broncos, right?
Yep.
I can get him at 112.
You won't be able to get him at 112.
I think I would be able to be honest.
In a sharp league, I don't think you would.
Okay, well, let's say I can because, McConkey,
then I would take 112 and 205.
Worthy, Bryant Thomas, they got nutted landing spots, and that's why Bo Nix is available at the 112. So you get Bo Nix plus the 205 of insulated value with a first-round draft capital, re-roll quarterback. Are you taking that over Bryce Young like 10 out of 10 times?
Every single time.
Yeah, I think so. I think so as well, even though I think that Bryce Young is far superior prospect to what Bo Nix represents.
It's just obviously that's projecting, I would say, the nuts for everybody involved. Because if the wide receivers don't get nutted landing spots, let's fall in the draft, and Bo Nix
don't like Bo Nix though, man. Like people don't want to take Bo Nix.
In more sharper rooms, obviously in some casual rooms he'll fall, but in sharper rooms, like if he goes 12th overall and the wide receivers don't get absolutely nutted landing spots, like he's gonna be gone before the 110. I would say he's probably the 109 to be honest.
Yeah, I would venture a guess to say like his over under in terms of like keep trade cut
10.5?
value or like market would be, I think it would be like 11.5, man. I think he would be right at that, like right where Will Levis was going last year, even despite 12th overall capital,
which is insane to me.
It is. Yeah.
I like Levis a lot now, but the 12th overall Bo Nix is inherently a much better bet than 34th overall Will Levis.
Not to mention schematically, he also is a perfect fit for the Broncos too. So you want to go to my team here? We'll just recap our teams and then we'll maybe scan through some other questions. So I actually built out like a bog standard 0 RB here because I noticed I just happened to be getting half decent value at wide receiver there. So I grabbed Garrett Wilson. I thought that was good value at 211. I thought that Ayuk was great value at the 311 as well. So I kind of got fucked by the 3RR, but at the same time, I think Ayuk, I might have actually even considered him in the early third round had it not been a third round reversal. I ended up getting Purdy there. Excellent value in my opinion at 4.2. He should definitely be a mid third at the very latest. Rashee Rice, obviously, if the legal situation clears up, that'll be an easy value. I think Hawkinson was a great value as well. Maybe you disagree, but to me in the 6th round, I think he's got it baked into his price that this was a guy that was legitimately tight end 1 or 2 in Dynasty prior to his injury. So his ability to climb back up to a 4th, 5th rounder, no problem. Plus, in a competitive build like I have here, give me top 5 tight end production with the spike weeks that we've seen from TJ Hawkinson in that offense, especially if he gets Drake May or, a young exciting quarterback added to his team. I really like that. And then Christian Kirk was kind of a safe, productive PPR guy. Christian Watson, obviously the opposite of that. Terry McLaurin, again, kind of more of a safe, productive PPR guy. And then I just hammered running backs with Ramondre, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, Chuba Hubbard, and Isaiah Davis. In hindsight, probably should have drafted Jonathan Brooks instead of Christian Watson, and then maybe taken a riskier wide receiver instead of McLaurin and then hammered out running backs. But I still actually really like the way that the team developed as far as like a 0 RB type of build. I noticed the running backs were sliding in general. Like when I saw Walker on the board at 7.5, I'm like, these running backs are fallen hard.
Yeah, and I took the plunge on the running backs a little bit earlier, which is crazy for me to say specifically. So for reference, right off the bat, I'm going to make knowledge that Red Hawk 65 sniped me pretty damn hard. I was praying that Rome Odunze had made it back because, like I said, I think Rome Odunze may just be the steal of the draft at the 4-4, to be honest. I don't think people have caught up to that. This guy's going to get top 10 draft capital. He's probably going to be the wide receiver 1 of his team, or at least a high-end wide receiver 2, pending where he goes. I mean, realistically, is there any spot outside of maybe Chicago where he's even the second target on his offense right away?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked, man. He's going to be a really, really high-end target, in my opinion.
So, yeah, and I mean, obviously, like the one scenario too would be like if the Jets traded up a little bit and got him, but like I don't see them trading up. I think they're more likely to trade down. So mention that again. I would have taken Drake London over Olave in hindsight if I had noticed the board, but we're kind of rushed on the clock. So I end up going Lamb, like I said, wide receiver advantage at the top. Still get Kyler Murray, who has top 5 level upside at quarterback from a production standpoint. Although I would say he probably doesn't get back to that valuation on the dynasty market. I think he still pretty comfortably get up to top 8 level quarterback on the market if he bounces back from last year, obviously coming off the injury. Achane and Williams just proposed too much value at those spots. Most rooms are typically gone by my 4.7, so getting both at the 4.7 and the 5.6 I think is comfortable value. JJ McCarthy, like I said, 6.7. He's a guy I think is going by the end of the NFL draft, top 10 capital, probably going to be a top 5 round startup pick. So getting him at the 6.7 I like. AD Mitchell at the 7.6, fair value, I would say. Amari Cooper, like I said, got the upside of AD to be my wide receiver 3. Cooper can occupy that spot at least for the intermediate future, while AD kind of gets the kinks out of his game. Jonathan Brooks, you mentioned you're going to take him at the 8-2. I really just think 9-6 is too much of a value despite having 2 running backs here. Njoku here, Jalen McMillan, a guy that I have as my wide receiver 11 in the class, good value. Geno Smith, we were talking about it on the clock, but 12-7 for a starting NFL quarterback who is he's an older quarterback, but at the same time, going around after Aaron Rodgers, going that much after, Justin Fields, going a round and a half after Michael Penix. I mean, to be honest, I think he should be going probably in the Stafford range. So getting him at the 12-7, I'm taking. And then finally, Javon Baker, I think he's a top 15 receiver in the class, so 13-6, I'm willing to take at that spot. And then DeAndre Hopkins at the 14-7 to occupy the competitive nature. So overall, the way I would kind of project my team is Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, probably my starters right away, with JJ McCarthy getting the upside to potentially replace in long term. Running backs already set to from a competitive standpoint. And obviously, like I said, balancing the production with some youth assets at wide receiver to potentially usurp them in the long term. I really like how they're structured out.
Yeah, for sure. So there is some, instead of going over other teams, you guys can see the board there. There is some good questions that I want to go through. We're just going to speed through here. Yeah, let's try not to go on too many tangents.
I got to be somewhere for 4, so it's perfect timing for that.
Okay, perfect. So this will be my first rookie draft ever, 12-team Superflex QBs, Hurts and who's RW?
Russell Wilson?
Yeah. And sitting at 102, 105, I will pick Marvin with 102. Smart. Should I trade 105 for 107 plus a first rounder in 2025? That's a pretty enticing deal, dude. Getting 107 plus a first in 2025.
If you're telling me that's Drake May at the 105 versus, let's say, Brock Bowers in a first in your spot, I would just
it could be McCarthy in a first as well.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love McCarthy, I would still take Drake May personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think I just like the insulated of a 2-pick discrepancy for a 2025 first is just really enticing to me.
For sure. It really depends who's available at that spot, I would say. Because although, like, on principle...
If that was Daniels, I would probably do it, to be honest.
Yeah, I would too.
Looking to trade Collins in my league. What should I pivot to? I mean, Collins is just in such a massive cluster of receivers. If you could sell Collins for...
Don't trade Collins right now.
Yeah, like if you could get up to a Drake London or a Chris Olave or Brandon Ayuk, by all means. But if you prefer guys that are similarly ranked to him, like Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Zay Flowers, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman Jr., T. Higgins, anybody like that, if you want to pivot to them, you can. But Nico Collins is basically similar value to those guys.
Well, I keep coming back to Nico, and I honestly still think like the Diggs deal obviously affects his overall ceiling, I would say. By the way, I got locked out of my account. Okay, that's weird. I think it's a semi-comparable ceiling. Not ceiling. Sorry. Let me go back to what I was saying. My bad. I tried to go onto my underdog to see where he was going, and I got locked out of my account, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. Okay. What was I saying? Nico Collins. His outlook obviously diminished now. Stephon Diggs coming in. People want to drop him off the hay. We're still talking about a 1,300-yard receiver in 14 games that he played this year, 15 games that he played at 25 years old. It is much more likely to me that 1 year of Stephon Diggs, who the reception perception data came out, has clearly fallen off as a player, as a pure separator, went from a guy who was in the mid to high 90s as a percentile separator to a guy that was in the mid 70s this past season. So although I think he could be solid, there is no chance in hell we're going with the expectation that Stephon Diggs is the wide receiver on Houston next year, not Nico Collins. I think that is absolutely ridiculous. And if that's the case, you're getting the wide receiver 1 for CJ Stroud. Yes, is his ceiling limited because of Tank Dell, because of Stephon Diggs? Sure. But I'm getting the most talented wide receiver paired with CJ Stroud. That's kind of what I keep coming back to. A guy that has 10, 12 plus touchdown upside.
Yeah, he's taking the discount on both of these guys, I think, is probably a wise decision, to be honest.
Yeah. For sure, yeah.
What else we got? Kincaid, where's his value now? I think he's still a top 6 dynasty. My question with Kincaid is honestly just like, is he good? That'd be my question. I think because if he is a great tight end and he has a great breakout second season, he's gonna fucking fly up the draft boards because he's potentially like the main pass catching option for Josh Allen right now. Well, they're probably going to draft a receiver, but still, I think he's still a very good value at this point in time, especially if you're getting him. I mean, where he went here, I think is appropriate value, but I've seen him slide beyond this, like in the 6th, 7th round. And I think at that point, I think he would have been good. But to me, knowing that Hawkinson went a round and a half later, I would prefer Hawkinson at that price tag.
10-team, no Superflex, no tight end premium. Stroud, Stafford, Kyron, Gibbs, Swift, CD, Puka, Wilson, Collins, TJ Hawkinson, and Pat Freiermuth. So I would say
this is in relation to his question about what did transition
one quarterback league
Collins into.
I mean, I'm probably just not trading Collins, period. Like, he's the perfect wide receiver 4 on this team. Unless you can only start 2 wide receivers in a flex per week, I'm just keeping Nico Collins.
Yeah, I agree. See, what else we got. Rice's Kid Cannabis or anything.
Oh yeah, this is back to the point earlier with Rice.
Yeah, facts. We got traded Kyler 102, 103, and 209 for Burrow 101 and JSN. How the fuck did you do this, dude? Like, okay, let me contextualize this for a second. So
I'm taking the 102, 103 side, brother.
You are?
Yes.
I'm not.
I have 102 ranked ahead of Burrow.
Yeah, to me that's ridiculous.
And I have Kyler plus the 103 for the 101 in JSN.
You have 102 higher than Burrow.
I have Marvin Harrison Jr. ranked above Joe Burrow. Yes, the 28.
That's an oversight in your opinion.
I don't think so at all.
I don't care. He's 28, dude. He's like got 10 years of elite quarterback play left.
Sure.
That's absolutely egregious that you're putting Burrow that low.
I don't think that's egregious at all. I think it's egregious to have him that much ahead of 102.
I don't have him that much ahead of 102, but to me, I prefer Burrow 101 and JSN here because in my estimation, I think Kyler plus the 103.
Don't say is Burrow
and JSN.
No
yeah,
shot.
I actually do.
No shot.
I think
crazy to me.
Sizable difference between Burrow and Kyler, to be honest.
I don't think so at all. I think, in fact, if Kyler gets back to top 5 play, he may just be ahead of Burrow in my dynasty rankings.
Okay, even if you say, okay, Burrow's a late first round starter pick, which is completely ridiculous. In my opinion.
I don't think it's ridiculous at all.
I
would rather have Herbert. I would rather have the top 3 receivers. I'd rather have the quarterbacks that we outlined. Okay, let's play the game right here. So if we're talking about the quarterbacks that went off the board, 101 to 105, I would take over him. I would take Lamb. I would take Jefferson. I would take Chase. I would take Herbert. I would rather have Caleb
Taking
Williams.
Herbert
I would rather have Marvin Harrison.
Ridiculous.
I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all. I would rather have Kyler 102, 103 side here.
Anyways, I look at this as Burrow and 101 are both top 10 startup picks, and 102, 103, and Kyler are all second round, maybe even third, potentially for the 103 startup picks, and then JSN's a fifth, sixth rounder or whatever. Like I think he should be like a mid to late fifth rounder. So to me, I think getting the 2 first round startup picks as opposed to the 2 mid seconds and mid third and the 5th round, like you get a 5th rounder there. To me, I like the Burrow and the Caleb side there.
Well, the way I go through it is I have Caleb at my 110, Marvin at my 111, Joe Burrow at my 112. So if I'm looking at that, yes, you're getting 2 of my top 12 assets, but then you're also getting on the other side my number 11 asset, my number 18 asset, and 103 Drake May would be my number 19 asset. So if I'm comparing it, I would rather have 11, 18, and 19 than I would rather have 10, 12, and JSN I have ranked. Where is he? JSN. Where even is JSN? He is 66 for me right now.
Yeah, I am a little higher than you, I think. But
fair.
To me, like if this trade said Stroud or Hurts, are you taking the Stroud / Hurts instead of Burrow over? Because that's how I value Burrow. That's why I'm asking.
I think that's more fair. Start 10, it makes it literally right on the surface level. Because again, in an 8 or a 9, you're going with the top end assets over the quantity of assets. And obviously in an 11, 12, 13, you would take the number of assets in this instance. But like start 10, like I would say if it's Stroud or Hurts, like it's probably about even. It depends
also,
on the context
if this is a
game.
6 point per passing touchdown, I like it even more on the Burrow side, to be honest. Because Burrow and Caleb are both passing first.
That's fair. Whereas Kyler's not. That's fair.
Yeah. Ashland says, are you guys doing another mock after this one? Probably not. Danny's got to go, like we said. T. Higgins, value in Dynasty, I agree. Has Levis been spoken to at all? I mean, we've been talking about Levis a lot lately, but 6th round guy for the potential value accumulation that he has, I'm quite excited about him. Wasn't a huge fan of the prospect, but I like what they're doing around him. Mystic says, we already talked about this trade. He said, I have 3 QB1s, maybe ask for a bit more. Yeah, if you have 3 QB1s, I would be selling whatever other QB1s that you have that aren't CJ Stroud, to be honest. Like whoever your other quarterbacks are, I'd probably be selling them.
Yeah, I don't
like
Bryce, what receiver would that need to be Waddle, instead of Waddle for you? Like that would probably need to be Puka.
Like, okay, so 107 and 108 to me, like absolutely no difference in those 2 picks. So CJ Stroud for Bryce Young, Waddle, and an early first, basically, is the trade that you're making here. It's like, why take on all that risk, to be honest? It's like, even if that was Bryce Young, Drake London, 107 early first for Stroud and 108, it's like, maybe you, like, value-wise, you could talk yourself into the other side of it, but, like, why even make that move?
Bryce Young, Puka, and an early first for Stroud. Who are you taking?
Bryce Young, Puka,
and an early first for Stroud.
That's closer for sure. Then you're getting a late second round startup pick, a 6th round startup pick, and a 4th round startup pick. I still would prefer Stroud, but
that's the thing. Like, it would have to at least be Puka for me to consider it. So the fact that it's Waddle,
Puka Wilson, or like 102 or St. Brown or something would have to be the receiver.
Yeah, no, I would agree there. That's more so based on
you guys enjoy as well.
That's more so just based on the valuation of Stroud right now. Because, like, do you think there's any startups where he goes past the 104? Like we're talking about, doesn't get selected in the top 4 overall picks?
I still would prefer Jalen over him. And I think you could make the argument for Jackson too because of the rushing for both of those guys. But yeah, I think 4 or 5 is probably his floor in most drafts.
Like, for reference, Jackson's my 103, Stroud's my 104, Hurts my 105. I would agree with you that he's in a tier with Jackson and with Hurts, but given the market, like, he's going to be, this 22 going on 23-year-old quarterback. He's attached to this weapons core. If he, people are already calling him, like, I've seen somebody say they would rather have the asset of CJ Stroud than Patrick Mahomes. Like, that's fucking absurd.
I don't think it's absurd if you consider it. Like, I mean, again, you seem to be obsessed with the fact that Burrow's 28. Mahomes is the same fucking age. So if you care that
Mahomes is a perennial top 3 to 5 quarterback in fantasy for the most part.
So is Burrow, dude.
No,
so is Burrow. Yes, he is.
No, he's
not.
He
is. He is the second best receiver in the league that he's throwing to.
Jamar Chase is not the second best receiver.
I think he is.
He's top 5. He's not better than Lamb. He's not better than Jefferson. He's not better than Tyreek Hill.
He's better than Lamb, and
there's no shot.
Given the age, considering age with Tyreek, he's better than Tyreek for that reason. And then I consider him better than. I still think he's better than Lamb personally.
Okay, if he goes out there, has 1,800 yards and 15 touchdowns next year, maybe. But Lamb just had a 17.
3 seasons that Jamar Chase has played. The 3 seasons that Jamar Chase has played, he's been better than Lamb in 2 of them.
Sure, and
he was a rookie and a second-year player in those teams, in those situations. And
I would not have argued.
I know if the situations were reversed, you would say, "Well, Lamb didn't have his quarterback." You'd be making all these excuses.
If Jamar Chase had a year where he had 1,750 yards and 12 touchdowns this year, and Lamb missed time, I would give Chase the benefit of the doubt, which I think should be applied to CeeDee Lamb here.
I disagree with you completely.
1,750 yards, 135 catches.
I think Chase probably would have had a season like that this year.
Probably, but we don't need to play hypothetical with Lamb because he just did have a season like that.
Except this is his first wide receiver 1 season, or at least high-end wide receiver 1 season.
Are we comparing the player of CeeDee Lamb in 2021, 2022, and 2023 to Jamar Chase? Are we comparing the player?
I'm looking at their complete bodies of work. I'm looking at their complete bodies of work in a season in which Chase was completely disrupted by injuries to his quarterback and him.
Okay. And was that not the case 2 years ago with CeeDee Lamb, where he had over 1,300 yards?
Literally exactly what I just made the argument for. I just said you would say that about Lamb.
Okay, but if you're doing it for Burrow,
I don't care about Chase's season this year. I could care less what happened.
Okay, but I'm saying is Lamb missed his quarterback for 4 games. He had over 1,300 yards 2 years ago. So if we're comparing it, he was about similar. If you could prefer Chase last year, that's fine. That was the same discussion. Lamb just goes out this year, has over 1,700 yards and 12 touchdowns. I don't think people are taking in
this year, to be honest.
But there's a difference of I think versus he did.
It's not okay. Yeah, it's I think, but it's also like with extreme.
And you think Joe Burrow's so much better than Dak? Then why hasn't he had a season where he has over 1,700 yards and 12 touchdowns yet? Why has that happened?
Well, because T. Higgins is present there.
Okay, sure.
I don't know, dude. To me,
I played like 7 games last year.
Regardless, dude. I prefer. Let us know in the chat. Who do you guys think is a better real life receiver? Who's a better real life receiver? Jamar Chase.
CeeDee Lamb is at worst I'd personally say the 4th best, because if you want to put, I think Tyreek and Jefferson are my clear 1, 2. At that point, I think the next 3 off the board are CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Jamar Chase. Rank them how you want. Obviously in Dynasty, because Brown is older.
I think Chase.
I don't consider him there, but
AJ Brown too.
I can't get there at all.
Chase, to me, Chase is the most dangerous receiver other than Tyreek Hill 10 plus yards downfield. There's no receiver I trust more.
He's awesome. He's awesome, but we're talking about a guy that just had 1,700 yards and 12 touchdowns. Like, we got to give him his flowers.
Yeah, dog. Jamar Chase is 24 and was elite the first 2 seasons of his career.
CD is 1 year older than Jamar Chase. We're not making the age discussion here.
I know. I'm not making the age discussion. I'm just saying we have one less year of a sample with Chase in the NFL. And one of his total 3 years, he had his quarterback completely injured for. So his other 2 years, he was top 5 receiver in both seasons, and he was hurt his second year also.
And so again, if we were comparing
really healthy season of Chase,
if we were comparing year 1 to 3 CD to year 1 to 3 Chase, obviously you're taking the sample size of Chase. If he goes out there and has a year 4, just like CD Lamb had in his year 4, I'm willing to put him over CD Lamb. But for the time being,
legendary season this year out of Jamar.
So you think he's going to go 1,900 yards and 15 touchdowns, pretty much? Because that would have to be it.
I think he could. I think both of them are capable of it, but I think that Chase absolutely has like revenge tour written all over him this year, especially, I mean, he's up for his contract too. I guess CeeDee Lamb is as well, but I think Chase is going to go berserk this year. I think I'm all over the Jamar Chase bounce back season.
And for what it's worth, if I was ranking my receivers in the NFL today, I would have Lamb at 3 and Chase at 4. So I'm not arguing that it's completely different. I'm more so saying, like, we got to give CD some flowers here, and saying he's a tier below Chase is kind of ridiculous.
I didn't say he was a tier below. I said Chase was better.
You said comfortably, though. You said he was comfortably better.
I think he's comfortably better, but
that's
if you want to say
that's insane.
I'm looking at the last 3 years. Chase played hurt 2 of them. Burrow played hurt 1 of them. Again, and Chase was unbelievable.
Projecting forward, I think he can absolutely get up to the 1,700 plus yard, 12 touchdown level. I think he's got that talent, and obviously he's got the quarterback situation. But like, Lamb just did that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're discounting Lamb.
I feel like you're only accounting for this season though. When
I'm talking about. Well, if we're talking about best players in the NFL, receivers in the NFL, Nico Collins wouldn't even be up for debate in the top 20 last year. Now he's pretty consensus top 15 to 20 receiver in the league.
No, I agree. Yeah. I don't know. I look at the 4-year sample size of Lamb versus the 3-year sample size of Chase. If you told me you have one game to go out there and put up a huge performance, I'm taking Chase over Lamb personally. I think they're both great receivers. They're both top 5 receivers in the league, but I prefer Chase.
Yeah, it's again, like I think it's fair to prefer Chase. I just had an issue with the word comfortable.
Yeah, well, I was being a little hot takey there. Anyways, CeeDee Lamb versus Jamar Chase discussion.
We're having fun.
We went a little long on this one. Danny's got to head out. Yeah, we got a Dallas fan saying that they would take Jamar Chase.
No, I thought he was saying, "Oh, I'm a Dallas fan." Okay, I get it.
I mean, you are. Maybe he is saying that because you are a Dallas fan.
I am a Dallas fan, but
completely biased here. I'm a Buccaneers fan, so I'm completely unbiased here.
Is it biased to say that CD's the 3rd best receiver in the league? He's definitely in that discussion.
No, but you're I don't know if everyone else in the audience might notice this as well. Danny's
I'm very passionate.
Enough. You're just biased enough that it's reasonable. Like, you're not like a stupid Cowboys fan. It's like Dak's the best quarterback in the league, but you're like, Dak is the 6th best quarterback in the league, which is like reasonable bias, but I still think you're overrating him. And you say it's not biased. I still prefer Mahomes. I still prefer you're still being biased, in my opinion.
I don't think so at all. I'm basing it on the level of play that I'm watching. I'm not going out there and
we're not going down the Dak. We're not going down the Dak road too, because you got to.
That's for another day. Hey, you guys have been following for a while. You know that we have very passionate debates because we love talking football. And if you're not talking about your team, you're not talking about players that you like at a passionate level, why talk football?
Yeah, and I'll make a hot take to close this one out because Baker Mayfield's better than Kirk Cousins. So we're going to say right now to end this stream out, I'll piss off some Falcons fans with that one, saying Baker Mayfield is better than Achilles tear Kirk Cousins, not healthy Kirk Cousins, just to be clear. And also Baker in his ideal situation, which is with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now, is better than Kirk Cousins' projected situation with the Atlanta Falcons. Anyways, take the over on the Buccaneers win total is all I'm saying.
What is it right now?
It's like 7.5 or something. It's so fucking disrespectful.
Solid.
Either way, we're going to head out of here. Appreciate you guys for joining us. Tomorrow we'll have Dynasty Decisions. Monday, Danny will have a guest live stream that we're going to be doing there. Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll think of something as well. I'm actually coming home on Thursday. I'll probably have the Troy Franklin or whoever the next receiver is for Tail of the Tape going on there, but should be a lot of fun. Appreciate you guys for joining us, even with the nonsense the last 15 minutes that we've been talking about. But yeah, like the stream if you guys enjoyed, subscribe. Make sure to check out Underdog, get some values and some of the, if you believe Chase is a huge fucking value in Underdog drafts like I do, he's going to be one of my highest rostered first round players. I guarantee it. check out Underdog Fantasy, check out the site for all of our dynasty and rookie rankings, Superflex rankings, one quarterback rankings for startups, rookie draft guide, dynasty trade calculator. We also do have a new feature on the site, which you can now import your teams to the site, and you can see. Right now, it's just the community rankings, but there will be a feature pretty soon coming up where you'll be able to sort by our rankings, and you could see all of the leagues or all the teams in your league, how their quarterback cores look relative to yours, how their running back cores look relative to yours, and all that kind of stuff. And that's a feature. It's being slowly rolled out right now, but it is technically live on the site right now. But we will have it even further built out where you'll be able to submit teams to us for roster breakdowns. You'll be able to, build trades out in the Dynasty trade calculator that we have on the site, just straight from that page where you're like, okay, this is my team. I want to go trade for Zay Flowers. Who has Zay Flowers in this league? Oh, this guy has Zay Flowers. What can I use for my team to trade for Zay Flowers? And you'll be able to do that all on the site. It'll be really, integrated and all that kind of stuff. So if that interests you, obviously flockfantasy.com. Promo code FSE is linked down below in the description. So check out everything we got going on over there. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.